The IRS has collected $1 billion from delinquent wealthy taxpayers, which is great. The effort was made possible by Congress and the White House infusing the IRS with more resources. The Biden administration initially signed a law giving $80 billion to the agency, but $20 billion of that was cut thanks to negotiations with Republicans. According to reporting from the New York Times, the IRS targeted 1,600 taxpayers with more than $1 million of income who owed more than $250,000 in tax debt. Daniel Werfel, the IRS commissioner, said that because of the agency's larger enforcement staff, it has been able to focus on tracking down and sending letters to taxpayers who owe money. The letters included threats of additional penalties until the taxpayers eventually paid their tax bills, the IRS said. Werfel said that he believed many rich taxpayers had neglected to pay their bills just because they thought the IRS didn't have the capacity to go after them. They just thought they could get away with it. To the delinquent taxpayers, he had this to say: "Our message for these taxpayers is that now that we are resourced, we can do the job of ensuring that they pay." In other words, watch out, rich people, because the IRS is coming for you. And just to clarify, these aren't taxes that were in dispute or anything like that. They were simply unpaid. They just didn't pay them. And you might be thinking $60 billion into the IRS just to recover $1 billion. That sounds like a lot of money for not a whole lot of payout, but that $60 billion is to be spread out over the years. The IRS so far has only used about 10% of that money, and they're just getting started. It's expected that recovery will become quicker and more streamlined as the process continues. So Jordan, I have a question.
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
As a not millionaire, I assume, please correct me if I'm wrong, but did you know all along that it was an option to just not pay your taxes?
So no, not something I ever wanted to test. Knowing how stiff, or hearing about how stiff the penalties can be, it's just that's not an agency of the government I want to be on the wrong side of. But also, as much as it is a pain, we're doing this theoretically to create a better system, a better environment, a better culture, a better society. And people want to exploit that for their own personal gain. It's a very selfish way to see the system. This idea that taxation is theft ignores all of the benefits that these same people benefit from, all the research that our tax dollars funds to make America's medical system a decent one. I wouldn't say great one. The innovations that we've created with our tax dollars have changed the world. So that's ridiculous. But you will see Republicans and conservatives complain about this. They want to dismantle the IRS. And in Project 2025, they want to completely change the tax system to a 15% flat tax for working people who make $168,000 and under, and 30% or more. But within that, there are other changes that benefit the wealthy, including reducing the capital gains tax when 82% of income for the top 1% and 88% of income for the top 0.001% comes from capital gains. So the ultra wealthy under Project 2025 and a conservative administration would get the same tax rate on how they make most of their money as the working poor in this country. So ignore any right-wing attacks about increased audit rates and getting back taxes, because it's important and it's critical, and the alternative is just benefiting the wealthy and shifting the tax burden onto the working people.
What the right did when they were in power under Trump is they essentially sapped the IRS of all that money that you were mentioning, yes, the money that's now sort of reinvigorated the enforcement arm of the IRS. And that was designed to let the riches go untaxed. I mean, in other words, the the SEAL Team 6 of the IRS that would be designated to go after the wealthiest and to track down those tax scofflaws, there wasn't the funding for that. So what ends up happening is that those of us who don't make as much, we kind of fall into some sort of enforcement net. And I think, as is pointed out, a lot of us don't like all the ways that our money is spent. I mean, defense and decisions that are made with a lot of money can oftentimes make us less than comfortable. On the other hand, there's a lot great that's spent with our money, and I think Jordan articulated that well. And I would just say that the plan, as noted, for the future under a Trump administration, essentially renders the wealthiest people, who, by the way, are already lawyered up with some of the finest tax loopholes they can find, it allows them to really run loose without any sort of real tax bill. And what happens is we end up paying, that is to say, lower income Americans end up paying those taxes. And the final thing, to do a jank on you, the final thing is that the right is always talking about the deficit. What about the deficit? The deficit, the deficit. When you cut taxes, you are increasing the deficit. So the idea somehow that every time you want a social program, well, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? But Trump just talks about cutting taxes and no one asks him, how are you going to pay for it?
Yeah, Trump gets away with a lot of that because he'll just say things and nobody ever asks him for follow-up. And ever since he started running in 2015, that has always just baffled me. I never got it. And to Jordan's point, like, there is a lot of American individualism here, right? That's kind of what our country has been based on, or at least over the past few decades. If you can game the system, you really should, right? That's why so many people who supported people like Donald Trump and all of his other lackeys, right? Giuliani and Roger Stone, those kind of people, all those people who don't pay their taxes, who don't pay their workers, who don't pay their lawyer fees or anything like that, they just earn more respect from their supporters because, hey, they're getting away with it. They figured out a way to do it. They're smarter than everybody else. They're just not good people either. And they're taking money out of your pockets and they're making things worse for everybody in the country, really. And, to Mark's point, nobody likes paying taxes. Nobody's ever going to like paying taxes. There's always going to be things that you're paying that you don't love supporting. And I know that that's particularly relevant for a lot of people these days. And there's a lot of things that you would like to see your money going towards that it's just not going towards, the benefits that you would like to reap that you're not reaping. And, over administrations, the idea is that, you get to choose, I like this administration because they're going to put more of my money to these things and less of it to those things. So hopefully going forward, it'll become a little bit more equitable going forward instead of just like, these rich people who are already, they have more control than the rest of us, let's just say, right? They're disproportionately represented in our government. And our last story kind of spoke to that, how these people, these big donors, they have a lot more control over government and the things that get passed than we do. So hopefully things can balance a little bit from that point.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.